Okay, so item 7, and I think this has got to be something we haven't made it to in a long time, but you actually have 50 minutes.
Well, and don't get your hopes up too high.
Yep.
Because this is a big topic.
It is, but at least we're not at 5 minutes and you have to try and do it all.
Exactly. Well, there's a few things I wanted to do today. One is to cover a lot of, this is our last meeting of the year, so I wanted to cover all of our accomplishments over the past year. Wanted to talk about our PSIC office plan, which is the plan our office puts together every fiscal year to say these are the projects we're working on, this is how we're going to allocate our resources, and that's kind of all based on the SCIP and the strategic initiatives that the Commission lays out. And then to have a conversation with you after updating you on everything on what you feel our priorities should be for next year, the areas that the SIEC would like to work on. So with that, let me just jump right into it. In the area of governance, and I'm not going to cover everything that our office did, I really wanted to just hit on the elements that the SIEC has worked on over the past year. Obviously, the NEP Goal 2 assessments, reporting gap closure, we started off the year with the closing out of that process, or at least out of the assessment process, and beginning to look at where things stood on a statewide basis, compiling the recommendations. All of that helped to feed into our annual SCIP update, and also to begin the county-by-county kind of closure of various gaps, and we've seen lots of progress in different counties on those. And of course, your input and request on the technical assistance as well. From the policy, standards, procedures, SOPs lane, establishing a PSP framework is one of our key strategic initiatives. And this past year, we have touched on 5 different standards. Some of these were revisions, some of these were wholesale reintroduction. So the past year, the SIEC updated the Arizona minimum equipment standards, included in the 700 and 800, and really put that into a brand new form compared to the 2007 version. At the beginning of the year, this year, we had finalized the Arizona Interop Channels Plan, and then in the, as Susan mentioned earlier, the communications unit, both training and recognition program, all of those procedures, the MCU procedures, the training coordination procedure, all of those went under revisions this year as well. And really, across all 5 of those, we've now matured those to a level where they're very stable now, and we don't expect to have many changes moving forward. In the technology lane, a lot of the technology lane really falls outside of the SIEC purview. For example, or at least we haven't worked on it recently, things like the microwave project and the strategic technology reserve. But there are 2 in particular. Obviously, enhance and promote AIRS, the interoperable communication solution, and then supporting regions to implement, enhance, and promote functional regional voice and data systems in support of interoperable communications. So some of the projects over the past year, at the end of last year, we completed the drive test of AIRS, and to help kind of establish a baseline of where AIRS coverage was in Arizona now that the build-out of AIRS at the state level at least has been complete. The next generation AIRS plan, if you remember, that's what it has been called for the past several years. It's now, thanks to your actions today, the AIRS Improvement and Sustainability Plan. This is something that has been an objective in our SCIP since this first came over and the PSIC office was established. So it's great to finally have that checked off and completed and out there now for jurisdictions to take advantage of. We've done a lot of work on strategy and standards development, particularly working with folks on the national level and providing feedback into things like the minimum interoperability requirements, the statement of requirements that NIPSIC is working on. And then in narrowbanding, a lot of work on narrowbanding outreach. We started off the year with our statewide narrowbanding survey, and I just wanted to update everybody here today kind of on where things stand, the progress that's been made since then. Beginning of the year, about 66% of the state had begun the process of modifying their licenses, either both narrowband and wideband. There are three different classifications that your SIEC license can be: wideband only, narrow and wide, or narrowband only. We started off with just 16% of the state at a narrowband only, and 50% of the state was had both narrowband and wideband. And about a third of the state was wideband only. Since then, as of the end of September, we've made a great amount of progress on that. We're up to 88.5% that have updated their license status and are actively moving it through. So far, at the moment, little over 10% of the state is still wideband only, 854 transmitters out of, I believe it's 7,500, 7,400 transmitters statewide. So that's significant progress, although there is only 3 months left to go. It's rather difficult to know out of those 850 transmitters how many of those are going to be decommissioned at the end of the year, how many of those are planning on converting, and how many of those will be in non-compliance, is the kind of the technical term the FCC has been using recently. From a narrowband only standpoint, we obviously have a lot of work. There are many jurisdictions that may have already gone completely narrowband. They just haven't changed their license from narrow wide to narrow only. The brownish area are counties where between 20 and 40% of the transmitters have been updated to narrowband only. The red counties there are counties that less than 20% are narrowband only. Now, before that gets too concerning, though, this slide is the one that we're really concerned about, and these are the counties that, this is the wideband only standpoint. Maricopa County there, the dark blue one, somewhere between 20 and 40% of transmitters in Maricopa County are wideband only right now. The green counties are counties where less than 20% of the county is wideband only. So we have made a significant amount of progress completely statewide. This is showing that a big chunk of our wideband transmitters, I believe it's 323 there, out of that 800 are right here in Maricopa County. So we know with major systems like RWC and TRWC, these are 700, 800 megahertz systems, and so we're not looking at too huge of an impact. I'm sorry, excuse me, I was a little bit unclear there. With the major systems serving Maricopa County being 700 and 800 and not subject to narrowbanding, this 20% figure here isn't too much of a concern. My guess is that a large chunk of this 323 are transmitters or licenses that are still licensed out there, but really are no longer in use. Or they're smaller agencies, maybe they're in the process of migrating to one of those systems. At the beginning of the year, we had sent out that survey and asked all the SIEC license holders to let us know their plans. We're going to be following up this week with those license holders again that are in this 850 wideband only column, and saying, hey, we're down to 3 months. Where are you at? Where's the progress made? And hopefully it's a case that a majority of these are just folks that haven't updated the universal licensing system. But if you are in the Maricopa County area in particular, it's something to pay attention to if you're operating in VHF UHF. Any questions on narrowbanding status? Also within the technology realm, as I mentioned, the microwave, state strategic technology reserve, state agency communications, those are three of our initiatives that the SIEC at least has not had a lot of emphasis and work on this year, although there has been a lot of work on all three of those initiatives. And I should mention that in July at the PSIC meeting in Flagstaff, I did a very similar presentation to the Commission on statewide activities. So if you'd like to get updates on those 3 initiatives. That July presentation has some updates on all 3 of those. In the realm of training and exercise, I'm not going to repeat Susan's presentation because she did a great job on that. But clearly a lot has been done in the Communications Unit Training and Recognition Program. Just in the past year, we've held the 3 COMNEL courses, 1 CompT course. We now have 8 OEC approved COMNEL instructors here in Arizona, and the field day is underway, and we've got the 18 recognized COMNELs and 1 CompT. Within usage and outreach, our office is still shorthanded, and we still continue to conduct interviews to help expand our office. So some of the usage and outreach has consolidated down or been restricted this past year. But even with that, we updated the statewide education and outreach plan. That was approved by the PSIC in July after the update of the SCIP, and that plan was updated to conform to the SCIP. This past month, unfortunately Paul's not here today, but we held the Environmental and Historic Preservation Compliance for Public Safety Communications Facilities workshop. Incredibly long title for a workshop, but the day-long workshop was really informative. We had, I believe, 54 folks that attended that workshop from all across the state, from a whole bunch of different agencies, from vendors to radio shop guys to grants planners, folks like that. So we had a really good cross-spectrum of people that attended that workshop. Started off with discussions from the FCC, State Homeland Security. I'm failing on the name of the tribe that came down. They sent 5. Tohono O'odham, wasn't it? Tohono O'odham Tribal Preservation Office sent 5 folks. So we had lots of good discussions there. And then in the afternoon, we walked through some case studies that PC-WEN put together on challenges they faced during the build-out of their systems. And lots of myths, I think, were dispelled during that workshop. And of course, earlier we had the discussion on the implementation of the Arizona Interop Channels Plan. And we want to continue moving forward on that. But we have had some progress on that over the past year. So those are, before I jump into the next level, that's kind of at a high level what we've been working on over the past year. And many of these, we really have brought them to, not to completion, but almost to the point of self-sustainment. Particularly, you notice the policy standards and procedures around the communications unit training program, those types of things. So looking forward now in terms of our activities for next year, in your packet, and I'm not going to go completely through the PSIC office plan there, but we did include the PSIC office plan in your packet. This is a plan that, it's a companion document to the SCIP. The SCIP is really our statewide strategic plan, and this office plan is much more of a tactical plan on how the PSIC office in particular will organize our resources in the various projects that we're going to be working on over the next year, both to advance the SCIP and communications interoperability in general. It is a fiscal year plan, so every year we try to publish this at the beginning of July, and it runs through kind of July through the end of June. With our SCIP not being approved until the middle of July, this came out immediately following that. And instead of having to have you go through all 30 pages of the SCIP plus its appendices, there is a handout that I put together here. It's just a list of the various PSIC office projects that we've got planned for the coming year.
So it's right after your office plan.
Right out. Thank you, Mark. There's our little logo on the top and says FY 2013 PSIC office projects. And as you can see, we have a whole number of projects that are listed there. In the governance lane, continued update to the SCIP and the PSIC office plan every year, of course. Technical assistance support. Want to continue and really emphasize next year regional governance. advancements. Continue working on the chasm. We haven't talked about that much with the SIEC this year, but Karen Allen has been doing tremendous work in working with local agencies to keep their chasm information updated and to get more information included into chasm. We have talked a lot about tick fees, and you saw earlier in Michael Britt's presentation on interop channels that all the various counties that we are going to be working with on implementing tick fees, and then strategic planning. The Phoenix Central area, RWC, TRWC continue to work on their strategic plan. And then, of course, Goal 2 gap closure and continuing discussions on developing the governance broadband.
So should we do it?
Do you want to, and that's a good point. Should we break this down and have lane-by-lane discussions on where you would like the SIC to work on? Do you want me to go through all of the projects and then kind of come back? What are your thoughts?
Why don't you hit them all, we'll come back.
In PSP lane, we're not looking at updating any of our communications unit procedures next year, but we do review all of the procedures annually. So if there are updates, either changes at the federal level that need to be done, or if we've new knowledge we've gained over the past year that we need to go back and look at those, of course we keep an eye on those. The interop channels plan, priority programming guide, primarily the implementation of those SOPs. The errors improvement and sustainability plan. As you know, there is a county that has requested grant funds this cycle, so if that is awarded, that plan will come into action, and we'll have first chance and opportunity to see how that works. Continued development of broadband. We talked about this at our last SIEC meeting, but all of our policy standards and procedures are moving over into the new PSIC office template for some consistency. The RCSC project, Regional Communication Systems Connection Project, in the next year we anticipate that the SOP for that project will be finalized. It's in a draft phase right now, pending the completion of the technology implementation. But once that project comes online, then we'll look at that SOP. And then the RICO project, or that the 6 tower sites there in southern Arizona. Along with that, there are 10 PSAPs and law enforcement agencies that have been given radios, or will be given radios once they complete the MOU, to form a system-wide calling channel in the southern area. That SOP has actually been drafted for a while now. We've been working with the user group to finalize it, and I think we're at a phase that once all those participating agencies sign the MOU, then that one will be finalized. But we haven't seen any tweaks to that document, so it's stabilized.
Wait, you said they're going to be given radios?
Oh, sorry. Let me read. The RICO project was the $2.2 million in RICO funds that actually almost 2 years ago now, PSCC, JLBC, and the Information Technology Advisory Council all approved a project to expand 700 megahertz, 800 megahertz coverage in the southern portion of Arizona and really build out the YRCS DPS partnership. There are 5 of the 6 towers have been activated, and so there are significant coverage among southern Arizona. Another section, there were 3 kind of components of that project. One was the expansion of coverage. 2 was the upgrading of the YRCS operability or operating system to be able to handle the increased capacity and additional features that are available. And a third kind of very small component, although very, very important component of it, at least small dollar-wise, was the purchase of some radios so that dispatch centers within each of the southern border counties there would each have access to the YRCS system and a dedicated channel that allows Greenlee and Graham and Pima, Cochise, Santa Cruz, Yuma to all talk to each other and to coordinate actions. It's very similar to the Maricopa, I don't want to call it a party line, but the dispatch centers all being able to talk to each other on a single channel.
Those were statewide RICO funds?
That's correct.
Who decided that?
The commission, PSCC, JLBC, that initially that money was designated for the build-out of a statewide interoperable communications solution and the detailed design.
So I thought it was
$2 million.
for the
It's
backbone.
$2 million. Let's put it.
Yeah, it's $2.2 million.
And
Yeah.
there was not enough money for the state.
Yeah, so that it was
Right.
designated for the detailed design, and the JLBC, on recommendation of the PSCC, said it makes no sense to spend $2 million designing a system that we don't have the $300 million to build the statewide system. And so they asked us to go out and develop a proposal and bring it back to them. And so the PSCC, we met with DPS, Homeland Security, ADOT, solicited input from a whole bunch of folks. YRCS presented the proposal. We had PSCC approve it, JLBC approved it, and the Information Technology Authorization Committee, which is a statewide agency that approves any project over $1 million. So that was the RICO project. Sorry. Yeah, it has been a while since we've talked about that project here. From a technology standpoint, the errors improvement and sustainability plan, we anticipate there will be some entities that are counties, agencies that are interested in expanding errors coverage. Continue to support regional communication systems and their build-out. As many of you may know, the state CIO, Aaron Sandine, is also chair of the PSCC, and part of our agency is responsible for oversight of all IT projects, including land mobile radio projects in the state. So through that role, our agency provides oversight for errors, microwave, strategic technology reserve, any other projects like that, and that's how we've been able to monitor state agency narrowbanding progress. The BID-P project down in Yuma continues to go forward, and we're working with them on a lot of areas. The state agency operability, interoperability, and the RICO project that I just went over. In the training and exercise lane, continue to work on ComL and ComT training. Susan mentioned that a brand new award, there was some fallout funds in the Southern RAC, and so those have been designated for an additional ComT training that we're looking towards the beginning of next year for. The ComL training field day, continuing to advance our recognition program, working on getting errors training more prevalent, probably combining that errors training with a lot of the outreach that we're doing on the implementation of the interop channels plan. And then the continued development of a training and exercise strategy, and more importantly, incorporating interoperable communication into existing training and exercise strategies. And then down in the usage and outreach lane, narrowbanding compliance, even though the UHF narrowbanding deadline is at the beginning of January, then we have the 2017 deadline for 700, 800 megahertz. So that's coming up. And we know, as you saw in those numbers, we will not have 100% compliance come January 1. But we want to continue to work on that. Broadband efforts, Michael talked earlier about kind of a framework for how our outreach efforts will take shape under there. Continue to work under NECP goal to gap closures, and then our annual update to our statewide education and outreach plan. So as you can see, there's an awful lot of projects there that our office is working on, and I'm sure there will be more that crop up over the year as more things come about. So what I'd kind of like to do is get your thoughts on areas that you think that the SIC would like to be working on and focusing on next year, whether it's items already discussed in our PSIC office plan, or if there are other issues that you would like us to be addressing and looking at over the coming year.
So are you looking to prioritize kind of this list, or were you think we're more specific?
Yeah, we're saying, what are your priorities?
Well, what is the SIEC's priorities over the the coming year. You know, are there areas that the SIEC wants to be working on next year? The interop channels plan, for example. The AIRS Improvement and Sustainability Plan. Is that a plan that, now that it's out there, does the SIEC feel that, okay, it's out there? Or do you feel that we should be actively working to go out and kind of get agencies to expand AIRS? Or is that something that's more the responsibility of the jurisdictions at this point?
I think it's still an education process on folks even using it, but I mean, if we went up to the top, I think the use of CASM and the TICPs, I think that's something that's still, we started on it, and I think that's an important part of getting everything else kind of fall into place. So I think that's something that we still have to move on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, you know, one thing we've heard loud and clear from our federal partners, and I'm sure you guys have seen, is the money for technology is drying up. Stuff we're, you know, us buying more things are dwindling. So, and technology costs a lot of money, but the training and exercise and the, you know, better utilization of what you do have, while it does cost some time and effort, and sometimes a little bit of funding, that's stuff that I think we can focus on. At least I can speak for Maricopa County. We have a lot of stuff, but we have a lot of people who don't know what we have, and they don't know how to use it, and they don't even know how to get a hold of it. I don't know if that, maybe the rest of the state's not in that position, but...
And we don't have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But does the rest of the state know what stuff we have that we can deploy to them? Just because they don't have it doesn't mean it's not available to them. It means they don't know how to get it. So I don't expect Greenlee to have all the assets we have, but I would hope that they know how to get the assets when they need them. And that's where I see a lot of effort taking place, that we're not going to be able to outfit those counties with what we have, but we can certainly better utilize our assets to support their operations. But that's a training and education, that's an exercise piece, that's a getting to know each other piece. And that's where I think your office and the SIEC can play a role in making sure that we share what we have available and better utilize it instead of hoarding it.
Yeah, there's no sense of moving on to new, you know, white elephants if we're not fully using what's already out there. And I just want to make a note, since 2008 to present, I've counted a total of $19 million deferred away from the statewide digital microwave project. So that does concern me that we continually come up with new projects, and we haven't never completed that, which would have resolved a lot of the issues throughout the state by then.
We're getting on it. The other one I'd like to see, and I had really suggested this to Dr. Justice, that some AARs on exercises. You know, I know the exercise that NEMA just went through took some hits because of agencies not understanding what they could and couldn't do, did not understand a directed net environment and some other issues. So, you know, maybe some presentations on the results of some of those exercises like that as an educational outreach project.
And I will give a slight preview. Our next PSIC meeting, we have invited them to come and present to the PSIC the results of their recent statewide exercise, both from a statewide exercise perspective and the interoperable communications component of that exercise. Their after-action conference, am I using the right term there, is not until, I believe it's next week or the following week, and so that's why we didn't have them on our agenda today, because they hadn't had that conference yet. But definitely come and attend that September or November PSIC meeting. But that's a good point, is getting counties to come and present the results of their exercises and the results of incorporating interopcoms into their exercises. Sharing the lessons learned, I think, is another way of what you're saying.
Well, Justin, one thing that I think at least even we're guilty of it, I think got hit on it, is there's AARs that are put out, but the part that doesn't get followed up on is the improvement plan and actually doing something with it. I have a lot of AARs from a lot of exercises that talk about all the stuff we should be doing to fix it, and honestly we're really not, because we're focusing on the next exercise and we're trying to, you know, I mean, you need those, but I think there's a lack of follow-through on the improvement plan part, and I'm guilty of it too. And I think maybe even you're seeing that with NECP too. You identified some very critical areas, but how much effort is being put to solve those areas for improvement? People know what they are, but are they doing anything to fix them?
And that's an area that we are working on in terms of tracking the goal to gap closure process. I think initially the key focus has been on the tick fees. If you saw the chart earlier, we have made a lot of progress in getting tick fees out. We only had 3 or 4 counties that had tick fees at the beginning of all of this. But we'll continue to report to you on the progress, at least that we've seen being made.
And Susan has done a fantastic job with the COML and the documentation. I think now that our program is matured, there's 181 people, but there's only 15 that have completed a task book. I like having classes. I think it's always a good opportunity, but I almost want to reach the lost ones that have already been to class and figure out what are we not doing to meet their needs. I think it's the training and exercise and the opportunities piece. We've failed miserably. Our candidates who've been to that class, we have not, and I'm guilty of it too, we have not done a great job of mentoring them and picking them up and trying to get them to complete the process. So, you know, again, not buying more stuff or buying more equipment, but using what we have and training the people who have been to the class, because there's 181 people who've been to the class and there's 15 who've completed the task book. I know there's some that are never going to get it done, but there's a lot of people that are just out there waiting, but we're going to have to take some initiative to get them. They're probably not going to come to us. We're going to have to go find them and kind of rope them up and
Give them the opportunity.
Well, then hopefully
that's the hard part, is give them the opportunities.
Yeah, hopefully that COML Field Day will be something that if we can do it right the first time, we can continue doing it, and it will provide an opportunity for networking, to have the people that are recognized COMLs be there to help train the candidates and also build those relationships to invite them to more pre-planned events.
And I know, like, you know, Jason Roosevelt out at PIR, he's taken Ron and some other people who've been to classes or will be going to classes, and we're trying to get them into the process, and we're starting to cycle out the people who've been through the task book, and we're starting to bring in the people who need their task book, and that's good. Those are the opportunities that we need to be presenting to folks. But I think the COML exercise is the first step in that, and then, you know, I think that's why Connecticut, or, you know, they've been so successful, that they can do that every quarter. Yeah, they're knocking out task books. I don't know where they get the money for that, but we need to figure it out.
Okay, so with those updates, don't get busy here because we actually talked about each of these projects already. The other input that I would like to get your thoughts on, and please, if I'm cutting anyone off, you know, there are other priorities and stuff. This is the time to kind of let us know. But I also wanted to talk about our schedule. We have not yet established the 2013 SIEC schedule. This year, the PSCC, you know, every year the PSCC holds 5 meetings, the SIEC holds 5. The PSCC will do 3 in Phoenix, 1 in Flagstaff during the powwow, 1 in Tucson down in September. For the SIEC, in 2010, we try to have at least 1 meeting not in Phoenix for the SIEC to be able to take it on the road. As you see, we've gotten much better with our web conferences now. I believe we have 9 folks that are on our web conference today, but we do still want to be able to kind of take it on the road. In 2010, we were in Prescott. 2011, of course, our office was on the road all year with NACP Goal 2, but we started off this year up in Bullhead City at the Arizona Ambulance Association's annual conference. So wanted to get your thoughts on 2013 for those ideas on where we should take the SIEC meeting. Should we try and schedule the January meeting again in conjunction up there in Bullhead City? Should we look towards another conference or another location in Arizona?
I think the PSCC meetings have been successful by at least kind of moving them around a little bit as much as you can. I think you get a different crowd than you normally would. Some people can't travel, but I don't know. I think it's a good opportunity. If our focus is going to be training and outreach and hitting the people that are missing, you can't do that sitting in Maricopa County 5 times a year. So, I don't know.
Locations with PSIC probably realistically are the best choices. I know if I look at Arizona APCO NINA group, then we used to move around, but when we go to the rural Arizona attendance, typically is with real board, and it's supported by larger agencies, Phoenix, Tucson, which tend to show up regardless of where we're at. So I think maybe the Phoenix like Tucson kind of a selection is okay, you go north, so you can, if people in northern Arizona is just a few hours east to west, you go south, and you collect a additional group that could show up by a couple hours of drive instead of 4 or 6 hours of drive. So Yuma is just about no man's land. Not much to it. They're 4 hours to anything.
Well, we certainly, any ideas that you have for next year, we would appreciate it. I'll be working with Mark and Paul here over the coming weeks to get our 2013 schedule finalized.
Paul can do something there in Tucson with PC Win. I don't know, what's the status of their new dispatch center too?
February is the last day for it.
So maybe there's a great show and tell opportunity there for PC Win.
Good idea. And then also the other thing that our office has tried to do is to hold some special deep dive types of workshops over the years. We had last January the Public Safety Communications Project Management day-long workshop. In September, we talked about the compliance workshop. Then last December, the Continuity of Operations Plans workshop. So with that, I'd kind of like your thoughts on what topics we should cover on that. Before this, we had some NIMCU workshops. We have 5 of those around the state. Are there topics or ideas that you would like to see us work with stakeholders to put on for these types of stakeholder deep dive type workshops?
Yeah, stick with Michael's back to Swiss dip. Somehow we need to get the education started broadband. True. For Arizona.
I'm sorry, which one?
Broadband.
I mean, it's obviously the next big thing for us. Now, how long that's going to be before it's
Or we just
intelligent.
standing around going like this
Yeah,
with our
before
shoulders?
it's an intelligent application for us to do something. I don't know. But
Before we can have a coherent discussion.
yes, but obviously that's something we'll need to do.
Well, I think you're right, though. Amongst ourselves, we need to try and figure out what our basis of reality is going to be in terms of Arizona. Well, I think, I don't know if you, Michael, had said it before, is that there were some folks out there saying, well, they weren't going to do anything else with broadband, they're doing everything to them. And even that education that it's not that close. You know, what, a little more realistic. Yeah, because, I mean, we have had local jurisdictions in the mayoral, governmental side, you know, contact, well, where are the grants going to, when are the grants going to start coming? And so those kind of discussions, you know, what is the structure of the thing and how it's going to work? We need to get that out there, just the fundamental stuff.
People are thinking this is like, you know, Homeland Security program that they're going to get to apply for. So, you know, if you use some of that pretty fast, there ain't money coming that way.
With that, a couple of updates I do want to highlight, as usual. The back of your packet there and online is our monthly multiple project updates. Go into details about all the different projects that the PSIC office has going on right now and activities that we're working with other agencies on. A couple of key items I wanted to highlight. The Southwest Border Communications Unit Working Group, the Southwest Border Communications Working Group meeting is in October 17th, will be in Santa Fe. There's a number of Arizona stakeholders that always attend those meetings. Susan already mentioned the October 22nd Yuma ComEl class. In November, there's the Arizona Digital Connection Summit, which will be held out in Mesa, and that's a really good summit dealing primarily with broadband and expanding out from a general standpoint, not just public safety specific, but we'll be there as well. And then in December 4th, Pima County, technically it's the Tucson-Uwasi Interrupt Subcommittee, will be having a day-long revision of their TIC-P for Pima County on December 4th, so we would encourage folks to attend that. The other item here that I wanted to discuss here, since at our last meeting we requested your feedback on technical assistance requests for Arizona, on the very last page in your packet is kind of a summary of where all that stood. We didn't have much time this year to get our initial requests in. The turnaround was rather quickly, but we did listen and hear everyone's feedback. The 5 requests that were made this year, one of them had to be NECP Goal 2 related, and that was the OPTTX communications focused tabletop exercise. The other 4 that were made, mobile communications vehicle support to help continue to improve the SOPs, PSPs, usage and outreach of the equipment that we already have. Regional strategic planning, in particular, this one was requested for RWC, TRWC to continue their existing strategic planning efforts, an auxiliary communications workshop, and an all hazards CommT course. All of those, so we submitted those requests after meeting with, reviewing all the stakeholder feedback, meeting with Homeland Security. The Officers of Emergency Communications almost immediately began their very first phase of awarding out those NECP Goal 2 related requests. So Arizona has already been notified that we have been awarded, or will be awarded, the tabletop exercise. And so our office is soliciting feedback from folks that, particularly at the county level, that are interested in that TTX, having that TTX come to their county, and in particular, using it as an opportunity to demonstrate progress made towards meeting Goal 2s. We've had some discussions with a couple of counties already on that. So if anyone is interested in kind of stepping up to the plate and showing, here's all the progress we've made on Goal 2, and can take the time and effort to take advantage of this TA, we'll have that. OEC has notified us that they're doing the TAs a little bit differently this year. In the past, they have tried to award all the TAs up front and schedule them out for the full year, and then towards the end of the federal fiscal year, they have about half of the TA still sitting out there unused because the scheduling didn't work right, and now their consultants are frantically trying to bounce back and forth to get as much done as possible. And so to help alleviate some of that, they're going to be awarding these in a rolling type of ongoing basis, where as TAs are completed, additional TAs, and when resources get freed up, then they'll award more TAs for the resources they have right then and there. And that way, hopefully, they can be more effective in awarding these out. We do expect that sometime around the beginning of 2013 in January, we'll hear on the next level of TA awards that we might get. So the other 4 were deferred until that the next round of TA requests. Any questions on the TA? With that, that's the end of my chit-chatting and talking. I'll be working with Mark and Paul on getting the schedule for 2013 finalized, and we will send that out to everybody in November here on our interested parties list. A quick preview of the PSIC meeting. We'll be hearing updates from the Department of Homeland Security on this year's grant awards and the upcoming kind of preview cycle. We'll have updates from the Department of Public Safety on items such as the statewide microwave backbone, the progress that they have been making, their state agency in support of interoperability project, those types of things. And of course from ADEM as well regarding the most recent exercise.
Great. Okay, thanks, Justin.
Yep.